Well, another enthralling 2 game weeks of Premier League action. Then this is going to be a special episode where we cover game week 14 and game week 15, as there was literally zero turnaround in between both of the game weeks. But yeah, as I said, a mental week of Premier League football. A lot of change, a lot that's happened that could have major consequences at both ends of the table. So let's delve into my 3 games. Where else to start? But we'll pick out our only game we're going to look at from game week 14. Fulham 4, Manchester City 5 at Craven Cottage. Honestly, I think this has got to be one of the best games I can remember seeing. Fulham scoring 4 goals at home to Manchester City, and we're incredibly unlucky not to be able to snatch a point. Josko Vardiol clearing one off the line in the final moments of the game. But Manchester City had completely dominated the game up until around the 50th minute. They were 5-1 up from that point on. Erling Haaland getting a goal. Phil Foden coming up with 2. He looks like he could be back to his best. He also scored this weekend in a 3-0 victory against Sunderland. It was a phenomenal performance from Manchester City against Sunderland. Fulham, again, in the first half, Manchester City were much better, but the second half, Fulham came completely onto them. And this is why I do think there's still a bit of concern about saying that City will win the league title, because I think they're a bit too open at the back. Smith Rowe getting a goal in the 47th minute, Iwobi getting a goal in the 57th minute, and then Samuel Chukwueze coming up with goals in the 72nd and 78th minutes, respectively. Now, Chukwueze, I want to focus on because I thought he had a phenomenal game when he came on the pitch. He was all over the place. He was causing havoc and really looked like a solid player for Fulham. And it's brilliant because obviously they bought him in this summer. I think it's a loan deal. I might be wrong there. But it's someone who's with that bit of flair, with that bit of extravagance, who's going to do something and create magic on the pitch when you need it. And it certainly was. It brought Fulham right back into the game. And I don't think anyone would have thought that Fulham would score 3 more goals after City went 5-1 up. But there you are. That's just football. It's the Premier League. And it's unfortunate for Fulham because I felt they did deserve something out of the game. They worked their socks off to get themselves back into a position where they could score 3 goals. But it was unfortunate that they couldn't, and it meant they remained in 15th. And now this weekend they've lost to Crystal Palace in game week 15, so it means that they stay within that small area whereby they're still in danger of being dragged into a relegation battle. Whereas Manchester City, 2 wins from 2, they're now only 2 points behind league leaders Arsenal with a tough run of games coming up. They've got Palace away next weekend, which will be incredibly tough for them. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of result they can pick up there. But 100% back in the title race, especially, I mean, were they ever out of it? But remember, they were 2 points behind Arsenal a couple of weeks ago after Arsenal drew with Sunderland, and they beat Liverpool, and it all went wrong the weekend after the international break when they lost to Newcastle. So they have to go and get something from Selhurst Park. Otherwise, it could all be for nothing. But yeah, what a performance from City. What a performance from Fulham as well. But City still a bit shaky in my books. Now, this one's going to hurt, but we've got to talk about it. Aston Villa 2, Arsenal 1 in the 12:30 kickoff on Saturday. Now, this was a cagey game, I want to say. Obviously, the start of the game, Arsenal last year did really well at Villa Park, won 2-0. The year before, they lost 1-0. The year before that, they won. And the year before that, they won. So Arsenal have a semi-decent record at Villa Park. When we know that Villa coming into this game had won 7 out of 8. They brought themselves right back into contention, into the top 4 after having such a shocking start to the season. I think 4 games in, they're in the bottom 3. They'd only scored 1 goal. They weren't having the best of starts of the season whatsoever. But in this game, Matty Cash obviously put the hosts ahead just towards the end of the first half. I didn't feel it was deserved. I thought it was a bit of a cagey first half. As I said, Villa didn't really create anything. Arsenal didn't really create anything. But you've got to be there to take your chances and stick them in the back of the net when they come to you. And that's what Aston Villa did. Ultimately, Arsenal then get back into the game with an equaliser from substitute Leandro Trossard. Himself and Victor Gyökeres were brought on at half-time, and they changed the game instantly. Arsenal were much more aggressive, much more dominant. They went at Villa and really exerted their authority as league leaders. And Trossard didn't last the full second half. He got taken off because he had a bit of a limp for Martinelli. Again, Martinelli came on, didn't really do anything. But then Heartbreak, literally with the last kick of the game, Emiliano Buendia. Arsenal can't clear their lines. The ball's just bouncing around in the box, and Buendia is there to stick it past David Rice. It was Arsenal's first loss in the league since matchday 3 when they lost away at Anfield to, obviously, a Dominic Szoboszlai. Won the free kick, only their second loss of the season, but it's starting to be a bit shaky. In their last 5, they've won 2, drawn 2, and lost 1 now. So is the sort of nerve starting to kick in? I don't think so, personally. I think this was unlucky. It was a game we really should have drawn, and at the end of the day, the ball bounces to a player perfectly, sticks it away. What can you do? But Villa, phenomenal side. That's 8 wins out of 9. They're really back into it, only 3 points behind the league leaders now. It feels very much like 2 seasons ago. I think it was 23-24 when they got Champions League football. Around Christmas time, they beat Arsenal and Manchester City consecutively, I think, at home. And they would catapult themselves right back into a title race. They did eventually fall off, but again, Unai Emery has done wonders with this Aston Villa team. Obviously, he picked them up from Steven Gerrard, who had them in the relegation zone a couple of years ago, and he's turned them into European contenders. Probably should get Champions League football this season. I don't think anyone really had them down to finish in the top 4, but whether it's Champions League through the Europa League or through finishing in the top 4, because I still think Chelsea look a bit shaky after drawing 0-0 with Bournemouth and losing to Leeds in the week, it could be an avenue for them to get Champions League football through the top 4. But we'll have to see. As I say, Unai Emery's done incredibly well. Arsenal, is it time to panic? I don't think so. We've got a very nice run of games coming up, starting with Wolves at home next weekend before we travel to Everton, then Brighton at home, and then we play Aston Villa at home again before. I think our next game against the so-called Big Six sides is Liverpool at home on the 8th of January, I want to say. So, as I say, Arsenal should be picking up wins in all of these games. I don't think the football's been that great for Arsenal. Obviously, their schedule recently has been hellish. They've had, since the international break, Tottenham at home, which is a massive game you've got to get yourself up for. Bayern at home, won that as well. Chelsea away. Brentford at home was a nice little let-off, I want to say. Didn't really get tested too much. And then obviously Villa Park away. But going into next week, it has to be full focus, full concentration on picking up 3 points and trying to open up a gap again, because Villa travel to West Ham next weekend, which I don't think will be easy. Obviously, West Ham did pick up a point away at Brighton. They picked up a point away at Old Trafford. So they're playing some decent football and they're not losing. See if West Ham can do anything. And then obviously City travel to Selhurst Park. So have to keep our fingers crossed there. But yeah, great performance from Villa. And then finally, the game we obviously have to talk about, and I think the topic that everyone's talking about right now, is Leeds United 3, Liverpool 3, a point apiece at Elland Road. And this really is crisis time for Liverpool. I think now it's fair to say they went 2-0 up in the game thanks to Hugo Ekitike quick fire double, 48th minute and 50th minute respectively. And then Calvert-Lewin and Statch draw Leeds back into the game 2 minutes apart as well before Szoboszlai scores in the 80th minute. And you're thinking Liverpool, if they can just hold out, to be a massive 3 points in a really tough place to go. Chelsea obviously lost there in the week, and 3 points here would be huge for Liverpool's confidence and Arne Slot particular to lift some of the pressure off, but they just weren't able to hold on, and Tanaka comes up with a 96th minute equaliser to take a point for Leeds, and thoroughly deserved. They've turned Elland Road into a bit of a fortress, especially in the past week. You think beating Chelsea, drawing with the champions at home. Obviously the champions aren't by Liverpool. They aren't obviously on the best of form at the moment, but it's still a great point to get at home to a tough side to play. And again, it pulls them further clear of the relegation zone. I think Leeds, if any team of the promoted sides are going to stay up, it will be Leeds United. I think Burnley are starting to get drawn back into it. Sunderland will stay up as well. What am I talking about? So Leeds should be adding to themselves with Sunderland as contenders to stay in the Premier League. But Liverpool, let's focus. So Ekitike obviously grabs a double, which is brilliant for him. He's had a phenomenal start to the season, and he's one player that I'm not going to throw into this mix at all. But the rest of them just look like they don't care. Ekitike and Szoboszlai have been Liverpool's best players this season, without a shadow of a doubt. Dominate, coming up with moments of real quality. I think Gakpo's shown moments as well, but apart from that, it's been dire. Mo Salah obviously came out after the game. He had a few choice words to say about his situation. I think one of them was that he doesn't understand why he's not being played. It's 3 games in a row. He's been on the bench now, and it feels to him as though someone at the club does not want him to be at the club anymore and is trying to blame this bad run, bad turn of form on Mo Salah. Now, he says he has nothing but respect for the manager, Arne Slot, but he doesn't understand why he's benching him. And he's ultimately told his family, come to the Brighton game. I think they're playing Brighton at home next weekend. He can't guarantee he'll play, but he just thinks he'll enjoy it more. So we'll have to wait and see. And then the big bombshell comment that he made was that he would go to AFCON, and we'll see what happens after that. Now, for me, it's starting to feel a bit like the Eric Ten Hag Cristiano Ronaldo situation. Obviously, it blew up just before the Winter World Cup in 2022 in Qatar. Ronaldo obviously left for the World Cup and didn't come back to Manchester United. He had fallen out quite heavily with Eric Ten Hag beforehand, and obviously he left and went to Saudi Arabia, and that's where he continues to play his football today. Will we see something like that happen with Mo Salah? Obviously, he signed a contract during the summer, which tied him down for 2 years. Him and Virgil van Dijk both did. And Van Dijk isn't free from this either. He's been really poor this season. It just seems like he's dropped off a cliff. But Salah does seem to be sort of the scapegoat. If Salah's not doing anything, Liverpool aren't doing anything. And that's very much what comes across. Arne Slot, I'd be very surprised if he lasts the week. I think they've got Inter Milan away in the Champions League tomorrow night, which will be incredibly tough for them. I can't see them getting anything out of that before they have Brighton at home next weekend, which you'd think for Liverpool would be a chance to relieve some pressure. But it's amazing to me that Arne Slot's still in his job. Their run of form has been nothing short of appalling ever since they lost to Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, and something does need to change. Quite evidently, if it can't be the players, ultimately it's got to be the manager. And for me, yes, you can say, yeah, he won the title, give him more respect, he's got to stay in the job. You're never too big to lose your job. Ranieri won the title with Leicester. He's a god in that city, yet he still got sacked because they were floundering near the relegation zone the season after. Mourinho, I mean, yes, it's in a very cutthroat Chelsea administration at the time with Roman Abramovich, but he still lost his job after winning the league title the year before. They were floundering around in mid-table, around 10th, so better than Liverpool are doing at the moment. I know Liverpool are still in the top 8, but it's not looking pretty at all, and I'd be very surprised if he lasts a week. So something's got to change at Liverpool, and it's just unrest. So that is it for another episode of Premier League Talk. And as I say, what a weekend we've just had with huge consequences at both ends of the table, which I shall put on screen now. If we take a look at it, obviously Arsenal are still top of the league. They lost to Villa, but they've got Wolves at home next. They're 2 points clear, so it should be a good chance for them to pick up 3 points and try and reopen a gap. Manchester City, 2 wins from 2 in the past 2 game weeks. They are breathing down the necks of the league leaders. Villa have catapulted themselves into a title race, only 3 points behind now. Palace up into the top 4 as well. A win away at Burnley during the week and then a win away at Fulham. 2 great results for them. They sit in the top 4. Chelsea in 5th. Not such a great week for them. They'll be looking to turn it around against Everton. Everton in 6th. Huge for them. That is incredible. And I've said it all season. They've been playing some really good football. They deserve to be higher up the table, and it's starting to show. Brighton 7th. Sunderland in 8th. Obviously, they got battered at the Etihad, but it is the Tyne Wear derby coming up this weekend, so that will be huge. You should definitely tune into that, the first one in a few years that isn't in a cup competition. Liverpool obviously still struggling. They're in 9th place. Spurs in 10th. They picked up their first home win since the opening day of the season with a 2-0 win against Brentford. Newcastle in 11th. Again, another win for them, 2-1 against Burnley. Manchester United are taking on Wolves tonight in Monday Night Football, but they have the chance to go up into 6th place, level on points with Chelsea in 5th if they pick up 3 points at Molineux. Bournemouth, again, a bit of a downturn recently. They sit 13th. Brentford in 14th. Fulham in 15th. Leeds in 16th. A win and a draw against 2 top sides. Really starting to help them pull away from the relegation zone, which they are now still only 2 points clear of. But you see, on form, they should be fine. Nottingham Forest suffering a heavy defeat at Everton this weekend. They're in 17th, still clear of the relegation zone by 2 points. West Ham in 18th. Again, 2 draws in their past 2 games, only 2 points away from safety, but still sit in 18th. Burnley, 3 points behind them in 19th. Fulham next, still not looking great for them. And then obviously Wolves, Manchester United tonight, and then Arsenal away. Arsenal away at the weekend. As I say, continually, Rob Edwards isn't managing to turn it around. It looks like they could be gone. But what a weekend. As I say, a lot changing, a lot going on. We're getting really into the nitty-gritty. Christmas break now. Games coming up thick and fast. We've got Champions League, Europa League, Europa Conference League, Cup competitions, Carabao Cup coming in next week. FA Cup starts just after the new year. So there's a lot of football coming up, and teams are really having to rely on their squads. So we'll see what happens. But thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next week in a much sunnier location for the next episode of Premier League Talk.